So let's talk about the Linux community. So when I use the term Linux community or just community, I'm including all of us that use Linux as a daily driver, as well as those that use Linux less often, and where that property which binds us all as a community is the fact that we consider Linux, whether server, desktop, IoT devices, supercomputers, whatever the case may be, you consider it to be great. And even those that do not use Linux at all but still consider it great are included in the Linux community. So really the only thing that you need to be a member of the Linux community is you consider Linux and all its ideals great. And now we also can subdivide the community into active users and passive users. The active users, it's specifically those kind of guys that go out there and spread the Linux Kool-Aid, use Linux, most of the time, or as their daily drivers. They code on it, they run servers using it. And compared to those that, for instance, only occasionally use Linux for some purpose, for some particular purpose, but not really as a daily driver. And this can be expanded further, and you decide which part of the community you fit into. You are still part of the community as a whole, whichever side you fit into. If you use it all the time or just at times, just like I said, as long as you think Linux is great, you're part of our community. You're one of us. But now we get to the point that opposing views of thought also exist in the community, which in itself is not a bad thing at all, of course. In fact, I would argue that opposing viewpoints are a good thing, as it allows our community to include majority viewpoints as well as minority viewpoints, and therefore differing requirements for Linux, and thus smaller sets of communities inside the larger all-including Uber community will then allow for custom development and thus different flavors of Linux to exist. And there we have it. New distros get created, new desktop environments and different takes on best software applications to use for one's own use cases. Heck, that's the same reason different programming languages exist. Different preferences, different use cases require different solutions. And this is what Linux has always been about. Giving people, many different people, access to a great and free Linux operating system that they can use, modify, select distributions that will help them solve their own use cases. It is okay to love on Arch or Debian, on Budgie, GNOME, Cinnamon, Mate. I don't think it is okay to say that your choice is the only choice that matters. I think it goes against everything the community should be standing for. Freedom of choice without ridicule is what we actually are about. That freedom of choice. I mean, this really is one encompassing little phrase that defines us. If you prefer a Debian server over an Ubuntu server due to your own valid, well thought through reasons, then good on you. If you meet someone that has very little knowledge and thinks that Kali Linux is a good idea to do, some solution on, maybe they want to host a web server. And well, then of course you should point out the error in their knowledge, and if they can't handle it, you knowing more than them, and insist on doing things their own limiting way, then say la vie to them and move on. If they don't want to learn, then that's not your problem. Well, it is your problem to the point where if they're messing up something on Linux, making some poor choice, and people see that they've done that, they don't know Linux, see that, and then think, oh, well, this is Linux. Well, then, okay, of course, they're doing our community a disservice. So everyone should always be open, to learning and so forth. The problem in our community is that some inner groups exist because of those that have purely political agendas. And here we come to the attitudes these groups have with, for example, the Free Software Foundation, who basically stand for free software use and freedom to modify free software. On their website itself, they state there, we have been defending the rights of all software users for the past 35 years. Well, this is great. They stand for the same thing the Linux community as a whole stands for and should therefore be supported. So Richard Stallman appears to be a not so exactly nice person. So what do we do now? Do you support the FSF due to what they claim to stand for? Or do you not support them because they happily allow Richard Stallman to be one of them? The position you take must be one you decide for yourself, and don't let anyone make that decision for you. Currently, I support the Free Software Foundation's claimed ideals, but I'm keeping a close eye on Stallman, and well, their continued support of him may just make me no longer support them as a group of people. Not as their ideology of free software and so forth, but as a group of people. Freedom to be a nasty person, though, I do not support. And freedom to support a nasty person, I also do not support. And in my opinion, neither should you. But whether you support Stallman or not, you surely can't deny the fact that he has cast a shadow on our community, the Linux community as a whole, and this I am upset about. You, of course, may freely choose your understanding, but hey, do your due diligence and go read up on him before, deciding, So Stallman aside, what I'm saying here really, I guess, is that we should focus on what makes the Linux community great, and to allow members to have their own decisions on how to use Linux and all its related software applications. There's no such thing as a best distro or a best desktop environment or a best server distro. There's only good fits for your own requirements. Let's not further break up the community into factions which denigrate each other, or even denigrating members that are in no factions at all. Let's not fragment ourselves. We all love the Linux world, and specifically in that, we are all equal.